Hello everyone, welcome back. Today's video, I had a comment from another YouTuber called Preacher Bear, who's recovering from a stroke, and he said that he would have liked to have seen more wood prep in the last video. So, what is wood prep? It's processing wood to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve with it, whether it's firewood, tent pegs, shelter supports or anything else. I subscribe to a camp that says I'd like to work smarter, not harder. So I'll achieve whatever it is I've got to achieve with the minimum amount of effort and fuss, but still achieving the job being done properly. A good example of that, there are people who will go out and they'll find a great big log, something 8, 10, 12 inches, and they'll cut it into cheeses. And then they'll take it back to wherever they're camping, and they'll get the axe out that they've carried into the woods, and they'll split it down into small pieces. Well, my view is that out in a woodland like this, yeah, you can do that, and that's not the wrong way of doing it. But for me, if you're going to cut it and split it down into pieces that big, I'd rather find pieces that are that big already, and then cut that. Similarly, kindling or batoning or something like that, instead of making the kindling or batoning the wood down to a smaller size, then why not just use the wood that's here? A good example of that, there's a tree right next to me which is dead. So if you're going to baton wood to this size, why not just use this? It's so much easier. Kindling. And your first stage, or stage 1 tinder, again, just thin stuff like this. It's dead, there are no buds on it, so just break it up. And then you've got your first stage tinder. So this first stage, second stage. If we go further up the branch, get to third stage. Now again, you can use a saw to cut this, but it's relatively thin. Oop, there we go. So you can snap it like that. Anything thicker than that and it gets a bit of an effort. But there is a technique that I'll show you now that makes life a little bit easier. What you can do is, if you find either two trees that are close together or a couple of branches that are close together, like this, then it's easy enough to put your stick in it, just catch the other bit and break it off. So there we've got first stage, second stage thin, second stage thick. That's your kindling. And what have we done? Burnt a calorie maybe? I don't know. So here are some of the wood processing tools that I've got and that I use. Although some of them I don't really use anymore. Axes. Do you need an axe? Not necessarily. An axe is useful if you're going to bang things in, so if you're banging tent pegs in, a small axe is a good idea. If you're carving something, then an axe is useful, but you can use a knife to get rid of the majority of the material that you want to get rid of. If you are processing large pieces of wood, then an axe is an ideal tool. So axes come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. You can spend as much or as little as you want on them. These ones were, I think this one was less than £20, this one was less than 30, I think. But you can, like I say, you can spend a lot more or you can spend less on them. A good quality axe that's badly sharpened is not anywhere near as good as a lower quality axe that's well sharpened. And the same is true of knives and saws. Anyway, that's axes. So there's a couple of axes. Actually, this one is a hatchet style axe, so it's quite small, and this one's more of a This one is more of a forest axe. So this is more your your wood splitting axe. And you could use it for felling, but it's probably a bit small for felling. So that's axes. And then you come on to saws. Well, there are so many of these things. This one's a bow saw. Don't really use this much now. It's they can be a bit temperamental, and the best thing I would recommend if you're using a bow saw, or in fact probably any of these saws, is a decent pair of gloves. And if you can get cut resistant gloves, then all the better. But yes, bow saws work. This one's a metal framed one. You can get again all sorts. You can get them with that are wooden ones. You can get collapsible wooden ones, collapsible metal ones. Horses for courses. If you like bow saws, then they're great. If you don't like them, then don't use them. A lot of people now are using pruning saws. This is a folding pruning saw. Most of these saws are pull saws, so they actually cut on the pull stroke rather than the push stroke. And all the teeth are they're raked backwards slightly. So that's a folding one, and this one's a rigid one. What's the difference? There isn't really. It's personal preference. These ones obviously fold up smaller than these ones. There's more to break on those because they've got the folding mechanism. Cost-wise, that one I think was about £8 or £10, and you can see by the rust that I haven't used this for a long time. This one is an expensive one. It's a silky Zubat. I love the sheath that it comes with. It actually positively locks into the sheath, which is, I think it's quite unique. But yes, I get on really well with this. It's got a curved blade. In fact, that one's got a curved blade too. But yes, I like it. So I'm happy with that. You then come on to my cheat, which is it's a Stihl pruning saw. I've used this a couple of times. It's basically just like a very small chainsaw. It's not very heavy. I think it's less than a kilo, I think. Or if it is, then it's a kilo. The batteries last about 20 minutes. And for an evening's fire, if you're cutting up things that are 3 inches and smaller, you can do all your wood prep for one night's fire on one battery. So yes, it's cheating, and yes, it's not very bushcrafty, but at the end of the day, bushcrafting is whatever you want it to be. I like to make things easy. I don't like sweating, so I do like this toy. But obviously you can't. It is heavier than a saw, for example. Then you come on to knives. Well, there's so many knives out there. This one is a folding knife. It's my hunting knife. It's a buck. You get an exceptionally good edge on these. This one is that sharp that if you touch it, you'll cut yourself. It's used for skinning, but you can use it for wood prep as well. Perfectly adequate. This one's my bushcrafting knife, which is a bush law condor. Good knife. It's a carbon steel blade, so you have to look after it because it will go rusty. The buck knife is a stainless blade, so you don't have to do as much with it. Regular stropping keeps them sharp. So that's pretty much the tools that you use for wood prep. Yes, you can have pull spoke shaves, and you can have carving knives. You can have machetes, all sorts. But that's just what I have. Okay, well, let's take this opportunity and go find some wood. If we take the silky short, because I like that one, we'll take the gloves. We'll leave the knives here. This is a really good example of something quite small to use as kindling. It's obviously some sort of, I don't know what it is, ivy maybe, or I don't know. Maybe it's just some contorted tree. But it's definitely dead. And so all of these little bits, you just break them off. And you've got the ideal base for you starting your fire. It's all bone dry. Well, there you go. So I'm just start the fire with. I just found this. It's definitely dead. It's not punky. So I think we're going to have this piece. So I think we'll cut it into two. I'll show you that in a minute. It's nicely spaltered inside, which means that it's good and dry and very dead. Time to process this wood now. So what we'll do, you've seen the silky Zubat, seen me cutting with that. So let's try this one. Let's put my gloves on and clear the decks. And I'm about 12 inches long, so about there roughly. With any of these saws, it's really important that you let the saw do the work. This one's actually, or again, it's a bit rusty, I think, but you get the general idea. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat now. So I do like this thing. So easy. So that's how long a cut takes with that. Let's just compare it with a silky. This is where I get tired. There you go, as a comparison. Oh, just realised we didn't use the bow saw. So let's just quickly use that. I'm going to use the gloves for this because these things can be quite vicious, these bow saws. They are quicker than the silky, so obviously the blade's a lot longer. The other thing is you don't actually have to cut all the way through. You can cut 3/4 of the way through and then just use gravity. So there you go. when you are out in the woods and you're using tools like this, you can hurt yourself. Make sure you've got a first aid kit. You know, they don't cost much and they can make all the difference. Something I haven't talked about yet is when you're transporting wood from wherever you're cutting it to your campsite, fire site. I have one of these things, which is rather aptly named a Bushcraft Handbag. And what you do is this. You lie it down and you put your wood into it. And then you transport your wood like that. Hence it being called the Bushcraft Handbag. So there you got it. We spent maybe 10 minutes gathering all of that. Now there is another way of doing wood prep, which is perhaps the easiest possible part or technique. Is get it from the local garage or somewhere like that. Yeah, it's not really bushcrafting, but at the end of the day, it's horses for courses. So that's the wood prep for this fire done. One thing we haven't done yet is to touch on axes and splitting wood. You don't actually need to split this, but seeing as we're doing wood prep, there are two ways to do it. You can do it vertically, which when it's a bigger piece, then it's okay to do that. When it's a piece this small, it's actually quite easy to miss the piece of wood if you're not used to doing axe work. The other thing about axe work is you need to make sure that your feet are nowhere that the axe can swing. So there's lots of little gnarly bits on this. What you can do to make life a little safer is you can split it like this. Which then enables you to process it down much smaller. This is one of those dry bits that I brought from home. Now, again, as I said earlier, I don't actually bother making kindling, but it's perfectly possible to. And another safe way, another safe technique, never ever hold it like that. Again, you can lie it on its side. You can either hold it like this, or you can chop like that. And the other thing is, when you go in like that, don't turn the axe, turn the wood. That way you're not stressing the axe. So just do that again. It's important that the point where the axe is going into the wood is where you touch where you actually bang it. If you bang it here, then you're trying to make the wood do that. So like that, in, turn the wood. And you can keep going as small as you like. Now something else that I don't really bother with is a feather stick. So you can make feather sticks. This is another way of doing kindling. They're quite easy to do. you rub your knife down the wood and then stop just before the bottom. If you give it a little outward twist, it just gets you ready for the next one. The other thing to do is just rotate the wood round slightly so the next one isn't where the first one was. And then when you think you've got enough, just break it off. You've got a feather stick, which is your kindling. Perfectly simple. And 2 or 3 feather sticks, more than enough kindling, or dry kindling, first stage kindling. Obviously, nice sharp knife. Blunt tools just cause problems and they're dangerous because you end up trying far too hard to do something. Now, whilst the chainsaw that I've got, the little pruning saw, is not the most accurate depiction of bushcrafting, one of the added benefits of it is it leaves all of this sawdust, which a conventional saw doesn't, which is ideal for your kindling or your tinder. Or right, I think what we'll do now is I'm going to sleep in the Amok hammock tonight. The weather forecast says it's not going to rain, but I'm not inclined to agree with it. So now we get on and put the mat in. What I found the easiest with the mat is when you're going to inflate it, just chuck it over the ridgeline. So you don't want it scrabbling around on the floor because they don't like having punctures in them. And it then means that you're all ready to pump it up. That's 10 bagfuls of air to fill this mat. Now again, something I didn't show you when I was down on the beach with this hammock is it has a chair mode. And what you do is you pull these back straps, like I said, and then you pull the front ones like that. One of the great things about the company Amok is they really think hard about the comforts that a busy bushcrafter needs. They even provide a beer holder. It's there, might as well use it. Cheers. I brought my chair out today. There's another YouTuber called Richard Outdoors who solved the sinking chair problem by putting a tennis ball. You split a tennis ball, you put a tennis ball on each foot. It won't sink in anything. So you can see when you sit on it, there's absolutely no way it's going to sink. Voila. Thank you, Richard Outdoors. You've solved a big problem for me because I'm not a small fella and these chairs don't half sink. I light the fire now. I'm going to do it with the flint and steel and some wire wool. Now, there's a caveat to this. I'm going to try it with everything I've got. Now, I've got birch bark, the cherry bark, and the shavings from cutting the wood with that little pruning saw. So, I'm hoping it's going to work. Pop that in there. off we go. Just letting the wind just gently fan it. So now we put our little fire. Lots of these little twigs. I don't know whether many of you have heard, or any of you, or all of you have heard of the fire triangle. Basically, it's just a triangle, and on each corner are the elements required to make fire. And if any one of them is missing, then you won't get any fire. So you have heat, air or oxygen, and fuel. If you're missing any one of those three elements, then you don't get any of this. Another thing, you saw that I was letting the wind fan the little tinder bundle that I had. It's always it is too easy to overblow it, and then you almost blow it out. So this is the sauce. Butter chicken. The chicken's cooked off a little bit, so I just seared it. I'm going to put the sauce in. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour now. Excellent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rice. So it's already cooked rice. Well, I think it's ready. It's reduced right down. I have been tasting it, and I must say, if that was a ready meal, it would now, the traffic light system that they have in the supermarkets, this would be off the scale because the amount of salt I've had to put in it to make it taste something, which is a useful pointer. What I should have done is I should pack an emergency couple of stock cubes, because the stock cubes would have changed it completely. But I only had salt, so that's what I've got to use. Rather than creating loads of washing up, I thought I'd do it in the pan lid. And it looks delicious. Enough for one serving. So there you have it. That's butter chicken from a packet. I know it would have been rescuable. Had I had my other stuff with me, I could have turned that into something that was very tasty. However, now it's just going to be, well, we'll see. I've put one of those, the wind guards up as a fire reflector, just to reflect the heat back to me. Fire's been going now 2 3/4 hours, 3 hours, something like that. There's plenty of wood left. The owls are celebrating my being here. There's been a very noisy deer that's been thundering about all over the place. Not quite sure what he's up to. The last of the firewood is on. As I lit the fire at about, I think it was about 4:30, 4:45, and it's now approaching 10:30. Just with that firewood that I cut earlier. I haven't done anything else. I still have the 2 pieces of firewood that, or the 2 pieces of kindling that I prepared. I've been using for moving the fire about, so I've still got that. Been a good day. I hope that there's been something of use to the bushcrafting community or the camping community. The other thing I was going to say that I forgot earlier was that I've had a campfire, and a campfire is quite small. I think the diameter of this one is maybe 18-inch, 20-inch diameter, and it's done everything I've asked of it. It's kept me warm and it's cooked my food, and it hasn't required hod loads of wood. If you have a bonfire, you need loads of wood, which means that you have to go and process loads and loads of wood. And I think I said at the beginning, I prefer to work smarter, not harder. So, smaller fire, keeps going longer, less effort. The fire's dying down now, so I'm going to be going to bed shortly. But I just thought I'd say good night to you, and I'll see you in the morning. Good morning, everyone. Another jolly peaceful night. It was a very clear sky, so there's quite a heavy frost on the ground. And when I say peaceful, it was peaceful until someone used a rifle a couple of fields away. But all's okay. So I'm going to put the kettle on, have a cup of tea, or probably a cup of coffee actually, because it's the morning, and then I'll be breaking down the camp. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found some of it useful, and if there are other things that you want to see on the videos, then please do let me know, and I'll try and incorporate them. So thank you very much. Bye.